But we cannot and should not enact a patchwork solution that enshrines Donald Trump's hatred and fear of immigrants into law. We need to think through the inevitable consequences of our policies and propose legislation that will actually help these families and their children. This approach stands in stark contrast to our president and an administration that rarely think things through. They never stop to consider the consequences of their actions. Instead of being ashamed about this, the president appears to take pleasure in the chaos he sows. But this chaos causes real damage to real people. These misguided, shoot-from-the-hip decisions of his have already caused significant harm to thousands of children who will face a lifetime of trauma after being separated from their parents. Let me tell you a story. It's one I haven't told very often because it's difficult to talk about. I often speak about my own immigrant experience of coming to this country when I was 7 years old with my mom and my older brother, Roy. Mom was escaping an abusive marriage to start a new life for us. Mom brought us 2 older kids with her, leaving my 3-year-old younger brother behind in Japan because we were old enough to go to school, and at 7 and 9 years old, we could look after ourselves while she was at work supporting us. My younger brother left back in Japan, never really recovered from the trauma of his separation from his mothers and his siblings. My mother always had deep sorrow about having to leave her baby behind. We finally reunited almost 3 years later. What's happening to these children feels personal to me. Like so many people, I found that my anger and emotion about this issue aren't far below the surface for me. I'm very concerned about what will happen to these 2,400 children who have already been separated from their parents. These children have already been traumatized, yet the president's executive order does not prioritize reuniting these children with their parents. And years from now, stories will be written about this dark moment in our nation's history and what happened to these children. People will judge what we did and how we responded. I will continue to fight against this president's reprehensible actions that dehumanize immigrants, tear families apart, and undermine our country's moral leadership. I call on all my colleagues, especially those on the other side of the aisle, to join us in this fight. I yield the floor.